Come through here, and the second-rate people would stop. Now they'd spend the night here if they could afford it. I think it was around 6 cents a night to spend the night. And you'd go get in the bed, and as soon as another fella come, they'd stick him in bed with you. Whether you knowed him or not, you'd say, "Howdy, my name's so-and-so." And then this fella would show up. And people back then would take a bath sometimes every 6 months, every 3 months. You know, if you've been overseas, that some people can get a strong odor to them. They'd serve them meals here for about 12 cents a meal, 25 cents if it had meat in it. Now, most people back then had young'uns to work. Whatever, the young'un was just the same thing as a slave. Davy's job, one of his jobs, we got Crockett Ridge right down here. One of Davy's jobs was to go out here and hunt. I don't have it with me in my pocket, but hearsay, he learned to take a bullet and cut it in half and make 2 bullets because his daddy would punish him. While he was here, his daddy sent him to school right down the road here to a teacher named Benjamin Kitchen. Now, I taught school for 38 years, and it got pretty hard to make kids mind there toward the end because they know they didn't have to. Back then, you minded. They'd give you a sheet of paper. On Monday, you'd write on one side of it. On Tuesday, you'd turn it over and write on the other side. On Wednesday, you'd turn it sideways and write across it. On Thursday, you turn it over and write sideways, and on Friday, you had to stand up and memorize what you had wrote. If you didn't have it memorized, he had a pile of switches over here, and he'd whip you with them. On about the 3rd day of school, a bully turned some ink over on Davy's paper. And Davy knew that if he got in a fight with him, run that piece of paper. If he got in a fight with him, that Mr. Kitchen would give him a switching. So he waited till school was out and just beat the sap out of that bully. And he was afraid to go home because his daddy had to pay $1 to get him to go to school for that 3 months. And he was afraid to go to school because Mr. Kitchen would get him. So he hid out for 2 or 3 days, and his daddy found out about it and cut a big, thick pole to whip him with. Davy run off up there toward where Molly Plant is today. Hired on with a guy to take some cattle up into Virginia. And he was 13 years old. Stayed gone 3 years. Got to missing his mama and come back in here and sat down in there where they's eating. And he growed up then from a 13-year-old to a 16-year-old boy and didn't nobody know him. And his sister, Elizabeth, got to looking at him. She said, "You're my long-lost brother, ain't you?" And he looked at his daddy and he said, "Yeah." And his daddy, instead of being mad at him, his daddy was real sad. He said, "Davy," he said, "you're big enough to be a grown man now." He said, I owe a fella down here, where is Joe? I forgot that. Oh, Abraham Wilson. I owe a fella some money down here at where Panther Creek Park is, named Abraham Wilson. He had an old bar down there where people come and get drunk and old loose women and everything. And Davy went down there and worked 6 months to pay off $36, I think it was. And he brought the note back and give it to his daddy right there. And that got him free from his daddy. And he looked at his clothes. Now, this shirt right here I got on comes down to right about here because you didn't take this shirt off for a week at a time because it's the only shirt you had. Whenever we was growing up, me and my brothers would stand there at the window watching Mama wash our breeches because we couldn't go outside. That's a joke. But anyway, Davy went to work for another fella down there pretty close to Panther called John Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy was a Quaker. Quakers don't believe in fighting or cussing or drinking or none of that. And I think that Davy got a lot of his personality from Mr. Kennedy. Now, when he got down there, now if you boys, I don't know about girls, I think if the Lord made anything better, he kept it, but I just don't know a lot about them. I do know that little boys, when they get about 13-year-old, and they see it pretty